Okay, so this coming from Kicker about Florian Wirtz. It said Wirtz has not made a decision on which club he wants to join yet, but Bayern are not in as clear of a pole position as recent reports suggest. One of the two English clubs, Man City or Liverpool, is said to be in a very good position and has high hopes of winning the race. Wirtz has all the information he needs to make a decision in the near future. Only when this has happened will the chosen club make an offer, especially since the price is clear, €150 million. So there we go. A little bit of a fresh development there. So Bayern aren't in as strong a position maybe as they felt. They don't go into detail of which of the two English clubs they feel are feeling very confident about it, but there was reports to say Liverpool feel upbeat about the chances. €150 million though. I would dare to say that any of the three clubs are going to try and knock that price down. And I totally agree with what they've said about not bidding until you know a player wants to come. That's usually the case. You usually want to get a nod from a player before you start throwing in bids. Unless you're dealing with Caicedo, in which case we apparently just throw in bids. We must have got some encouragement there though. 150 million, that's about 127 million pounds sterling. We've got a lot of information coming up on the late night video, by the way. We didn't put out an earlier video today, so we do have stuff coming out that I will record about 10:30, so keep an eye out for that one dropping. He's going to join Alonso. Wirtz? No, he's not. He's not going to Madrid. That isn't going to happen. They don't have the space, they won't have the money, and they don't need him. So honestly, I think of all the things we could talk about, Wirtz going over to Madrid, not going to happen. 150 million, that's steep. A swap deal can knock that down. I don't know who we'd be sending across the other way, but look, I can only go back to what we said yesterday. Let me read this out to you again. Was it this one? No. 1 second. I want to because it was very clear. So yeah, Lewis Steele said the money is there for Liverpool to sign Florian Wirtz. And that's been backed up by a lot of, even I think the Echo were like upbeat on that. If he shows an indication that he would like to move to Liverpool, the money is there. I've not really seen anybody say the money isn't there from, in all honesty. So rather than singling out individual outlets, I think it's just fairer to say everybody feels that if he makes the indication that he wants to come to Liverpool, the money's there to sign him. It would be very much against the norm for us, but there has to be something to it if everybody is feeling the same way. Mike Johnson said, I worry Wirtz is like Havertz was. I think he's far more creative than Havertz, but I do get your opinion. I don't know if you were around watching long enough, mate, but there was a time a while back where when they were losing Havertz, and I'll never find this exact stream, but I said many times that when I spoke to some Leverkusen fans about it, they weren't bothered losing Havertz because they were so believing in Wirtz coming through that they knew they had a baller coming through. So losing Havertz wasn't really something that they were too concerned with. But make no mistake about this as well. Leverkusen would far rather sell him outside of the Bundesliga for a couple of reasons. One, they'll probably get more money. And also, they're not going to strengthen a rival. And these days, they look at Bayern as that direct rival. Obviously, second this year to Bayern in the Bundesliga. They beat them to the title last year. So I'm hoping that between that and the fact that Liverpool have made a strong play, that maybe he does look at it and think, yeah, let's get ourselves over to Anfield and play in the Premier League. Kev Parker, how are you, my friend? Craig, people asking where Wirtz would play, where our current number 8 plays. It's called competition. We have 5 subs, so it's not like they both can't get game time. Look, he could do that, or he could operate as a false 9. He could play the Bobby Firmino type role. You'd have to ask Arne Slot what the plan would be with him. Because we can all sit here, as you said, Kevin, argue about would he be a replacement for Szoboszlai? Would it be competition for Szoboszlai? Would he operate behind a striker? Would he operate in a wide position? Truth is, I don't know. I can tell you where he could operate, but let's just say that if we are in for him, assume that Arne has a plan of exactly how he wants to utilise him, because you're not going to drop that much dough on somebody unless you know exactly where you want them to play and how you see them in your squad. I would guess, and again, this is a guess, if we spent that much money, then I would expect far less to be spent on an attacker, which is maybe where the interest in João Pedro comes back into it. He's valued at about 30 million according to reports yesterday, which is a long way from the 100-odd million that was spoken about earlier on in the season. So if you were to drop a load of dough on Wirtz, then maybe yes, somebody of that 30, 35 million pound bracket as a striker may be more likely. Maybe you then put your eggs in a Jonathan David on a free basket. Again, I'm not saying these are the ideal strikers for Liverpool Football Club, but there would probably have to be some give and take there. You couldn't spend 35 million on Frimpong. And remember, we're not going to, or 30 million pound, we're not going to bring in any money at right back because Trent's gone. So you're bringing in Frimpong. You're probably going to have to spend at left back, and you're probably going to have to add money on top of what you're going to get for Costas by about 20-odd million, 25 million. So then you've got that situation with money. And if you're going to spend money on the likes of a Wirtz at about, again, over 100 million, surely something has to give somewhere. You're not going to then go out and drop 120 million on the Julian Alvarez unless John's lost his mind and we're all in shell shock, because I would be. I'd be happy with it, but again, these are FSG as our owners that we're talking about. Oh, so I was getting so confused there, Fitz. I was there going, what Fitz falling out with me over now? I didn't realise at the start, mate, that you were talking to the director. I was thinking, jeez, we were getting on a minute ago. So, what am I supposed to tell you now? You've been writing nonsense for weeks about him going to Manchester City, even though he was at Liverpool. Well then hopefully we beat them to the signing. Fitz said Cherki and Isak rather than all, but all out on Wirtz thoughts. I believe 30 million for Cherki plus 100 million plus for Isak, 125 million Wirtz, probably a better way to spend the money. I would say Wirtz and Cherki would be an incredible couple of signings in either way, but again, I agree with what you've said. If you brought in Cherki, I'd probably want a lot more spent on a centre forward. If you brought in Wirtz, I'd accept a 30-40 million centre forward. Is he really worth 150 mil? Well, that is in euros, Mark, but it's still 127 million pound. Is he worth it? I mean, I would say he's worth 127 million pound more than Isak's worth 150 million pound. But are either of them really worth the money? I'd want it to be a bit cheaper, but ultimately I do think he's a special player. Like if he signed for Manchester City, I'd be very, very concerned that they're going to start picking up a lot more trophies again. But if we got him, I would say then you're talking about pushing us back into that favourites bracket for not just retaining the Premier League, but maybe even going out and winning all big ears again and getting number 7. But yeah, if it is a hefty fee, and I can understand a lot of people, widening their eyes when they see 150 million euro being mentioned. It's a huge number.